Well, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Yesterday, some people are even calling it Black Sunday because of the explosion that happened in Lagos. Now, it's a bit dicey because the experts that we usually turn to, the first responders in any kind of emergency, Lagos State emergency, people. Actually, the Director General there is saying that, you know what, I'm going to say that we don't know yet what actually caused this fire. NMPC has said, for its own part, that preliminary investigations would seem to indicate that a truck hit a row of cylinders and led to an explosion. But then going back to paraphrasing Dr. Femi Okeosanyintolu, the DG of Lasema, no, not Lasema, I think it is, emergency management. He had said that, look, he's been to quite a number of events, incidents of explosions, and this one just takes the cake. Anything from around 1 mile radius was affected. We also have our reporters on the field. We'll be bringing them in. There are some reports. We'll also be bringing them in. But as you know by now, by 3:30 yesterday, having the initial explosion having happened reportedly around 9 o'clock, they've brought it very much under control. Casualty figures, people are being careful, but no less than 17, it is said, if that figure is correct, are reported to have been casualties as a result of this. And I think up to 25, again, to be conservative, while these figures are being tallied, are seriously injured and are receiving attention. But as I said, in the course of on-field reports, we'll get to know exactly what's going on. And we'll seize the opportunity to talk about our safety generally, because for the initial suspicion was something about pipeline vandalization, but that has been proved to not be the case. In fact, that statement has come down that, no, that's not the way it is. That's not the case. So what then is, because of this, I think that's an ongoing exercise, and we shall know definitively in the fullness of time. Now, my guests this morning, we're going to be talking about safety as we're also looking at this unfortunate incident. Mrs. Debbie Windele. Mrs. Windele is a CEO and CEO Safety Experts Limited. Thank you very much for coming on the program. You. And I also have, by the way, Mrs. Windele has over 2 decades experience at the London Fire Service, and fire also in field of fire safety and indeed prevention. We shall no doubt be leaning on this bank of knowledge and be finding out what you think about our state of preparedness. And then turning to Elder Victor Bayo-Idowu, he's a veteran PR practitioner, and as it is, he's actually speaking on behalf of communities that find themselves in the middle of, shall we say, accident-prone communities. But I'll let you say it yourself.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Yori.
Yori, please.
Mr. Yori, thank you, Yori. I'm very grateful. What happened is that I live at one of Motayo Close, number 1. Then we have some other adjoining streets, like Idowu-Layemo, Irawosan, and Idowu-Layemo Street. So
these are close to where?
Off Irawosan, off Demurin, where you are going to Alapere from Ketu bus stop.
That's right.
We have one filling station. It is called G&G. That one is about 125 meters from the proposed mega station that is being considered. Then from that proposed location of the proposed filling station, we have another gas filling station about 10 meters at the back of this proposed filling station. Then we have another one, as if when you are going to Alapere, Oshogun is a popular community. We have another filling station there. And we learned that the distance between one filling station to the other should be 400, at least 400 meters. So
That you find that
yes.
you're in one of those communities where you don't really need to take a tape measure to it. There is no compliance or inadequate compliance with this particular guideline.
Exactly.
Mrs. Windele, does this surprise you? I mean, first of all, do you have any comment on that? Especially in Lagos, but perhaps not exclusively in Lagos, where certain areas are dotted with petrol stations. And when there's a fuel scarcity, they do come in handy because in one area, for instance, where we are at right now, southwest of Lagos, we have one just behind us. That is, the station has one just behind us there. It's also a residential kind of a community. Give me your comments on this kind of structuring of our communities.
Well, coming back from the UK to Nigeria, it just amazes me how regulatory bodies actually approve plans for such, stations, gas plants, for them to be actually situated within built-up areas. I mean, it just amazes me that who are these people that don't they carry out risk assessments of the area, to know the locality very well, the people living around there, schools and all of that. Everything, there is a factor that needs to be taken into account before such buildings are actually approved. But it seems like in Nigeria, the regulatory bodies are not really doing what they're meant to be doing.
Well, I just said that you had about 2 decades experience in the London Fire Service. What you're saying is that that is not so.
It would never happen in an advanced world. Working for the fire service, it would never.
So you don't have too many petrol stations in residential areas?
No. And if you have petrol stations, they're far apart, very far apart. Maybe on one road you could actually have just one petrol station. Not like this Lagos, where every street is dotted with petrol stations.
Well, almost every
street.
Almost. I understand what you mean.
It's ridiculous. And then next door to it, you'll have people selling gas plants, refilling gas plants and all of that. And you're thinking, it's just, everyone's just doing what they like.
Well, I can imagine your outrage. But you see, even in Lagos, there are some petrol stations that actually have gas dispensing facilities as well. So you can either buy gas there, that is cooking gas, or you can buy the regular fuel. And so what you are questioning, if the authorities are actually doing all due diligence when they are setting these places up.
Yes.
We've had a gas explosion. There's a gas outfit, again, not too far away from where the station is, down the road. There was an explosion which resulted in a fire, and that was contained, and it has been rebuilt now. No doubt they would have doubled and tripled. I'm just imagining, since they couldn't have done anything without authorities' approval, they would have tripled. I'm just saying this, not that I know, but I can imagine if your place exploded, you had to close down, and you're going to open up again. I imagine government officials will be all over it, safety and regulatory officials will be all over it. We're talking about this safety generally against the backdrop of the explosion that happened in Lagos, that we don't know what actually has caused it according to the Lasema people. But NNPC has offered that it's something to do with an explosion as a result of a truck. We'll probably get a lot clearer about it very shortly, about a truck hitting gas cylinders, and perhaps some sort of a chain reaction went and happened, because the explosion is such that one young student said that he came out of a church when the explosion happened, and he started bleeding from his ears. That goes to show you.
Vibration.
Yeah. And we've seen pictures. Maybe we'll see some more at the Abule-Ado side of town. What happened to the roofs? It's not surprising at all that and in terms of the technical aspects of these things, I believe one expert said that what happened was that they heard the explosion first and then the fire, and that was his first clue that if it was a fuel fire or gas fire, it would have been the other way round, that kind of a thing. Could you speak to that?
Yes, it would be the end result of any explosion, just like the one that happened around here that you're talking about. It was fire that ended it. Any explosion, whatever, it's usually the fire that will be the last result of it. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I've always said, and I have screamed ever since coming back to Nigeria, I will keep on screaming. All the experiences that I've gained from the London Fire Brigade, I've brought it to Nigeria. I've tried to help Lagos State in particular, for us to actually, the last conference that we had, which was in collaboration with, with one of the Lagos State agencies, we did that at Eco Hotels in September. A communique came out of that conference, which was, the communique was, it was put together by experts, Nigerian Bar Association, Nigerian Medical Association, Red Cross, Nigerian Insurance Association, and we put a communique together for Lagos State government to actually look at the recommendations, because we don't want incidents to happen, we want to prevent it. If all those recommendations from September was actually put into place, Mr. Yori, we would not be here today. It's all about prevention.
Okay, but I'm sure you're also aware that Lagos State, for instance, swung into action, and usually they have a very efficient, as far as I can tell, kind of management practices. They've been there. Anytime a disaster like this happens, Lagos State has these bodies that are set up to immediately move into place.
They're fantastic.
So they're not short of, we're not short of experts ourselves, but there's always room for improvement.
Yeah, we want to improve on the prevention.
There's always room for improvement.
We don't want it to happen. Let's improve on the prevention. They're doing a fantastic job there. Whatever they're doing is great. However, we need to improve.
And prevention goes back into safety. That is your area of expertise.
Yes.
Now, just looking at this case, maybe that's why they're called accidents. They're not planned for. Some accidents, they say, are inevitable, and some, they say, is as a result of carelessness and slackness. Again, not knowing exactly what has happened, but hearing reports that a truck might have hit cylinders, I guess professional practices can be called into play there. Say, look, how good are the procedures? What has happened? We don't know, so it's very difficult to come down and begin to say this and this and this should have been done. I don't know. Maybe the time will come when we get a full report, because when these accidents happen, when these disasters happen, we're often counseled to wait for full professional reports. In fact, the Commissioner for the Environment in Lagos, I believe it was, had said that he's not really able to say much yet, because there are investigations that are going on, and everybody will be looking towards the government. That will be taken as the official. So you understand what I'm saying, that it's a bit difficult, but sometimes accidents happen that might not be as a direct result of carelessness, perhaps.
I wouldn't agree with you on that. Yes, accidents do happen. However, we can minimize it. Do you understand where I'm coming from? We can actually minimize it. I mean, fire doesn't discriminate. Bomb doesn't discriminate.
And it doesn't just happen.
However, what we need to do as people, as government, is try and reduce the impacts. That's all. And
I think you will probably agree, because you sort of did that. That's one of the areas of specialization of Lagos State. It's not got there yet. It will be the first to admit itself. But this whole matter of taking emergencies, disasters seriously as much as possible, I'm in no way, shape, or form a spokesman for the government of Lagos State, though. I'm not at all. But just fair is fair.
They're top. Yeah, they're good.
Fair is fair. That kind of a thing. But going back to the point that you made, and that he is exemplifying by being in that area, a lot of people wonder, without necessarily attributing what has happened to the topic that we're discussing now, for sure, but a lot of people wonder, how come these petrol stations that are potential fire hazards are as numerous as they are in residential communities? True, we don't often have outbreaks of fire there, but that's the very reason why you are here, because you know that, yes, so far we're good, and may we continue to be good under divine protection. But why is it not a hazard? Is it not a potential risk for authorities to actually allow people who can afford it, if that's what they want, to build those kind of businesses? Why don't they maybe, Mrs. Windele is here, she'll probably provide us with, I think she said 4 kilo. No, you said you said at least 400 meters. You know, now how fair are you being? By which I mean, are there really no fewer than 400 meters? You know, between petrol stations in Lagos,
well,
all the time.
Thank you, Yori. She has said it all. I'm just going to elaborate.
Okay.
You know, most of us, or some of us, have been to other climes where regulations are being followed rigidly.
Okay.
Are you getting me? She has said it. But what we found here in this part of the country, of the world, is that people have their way, especially when being profit conscious or business conscious. So,
please continue.
So, in our own, what happened here is that we are feeling, you also said it earlier on, that prevention is better than cure.
Yes.
I know Lagos state government is a leading state government in Nigeria as far as meeting up with accidents.
Okay.
You know, Lagos state is really trying. I can vouch for them. But when we say what we are now asking for is to prevent the siting or location of these petrol stations in the neighborhood, especially built-up area. You know, you need to go through this. This is a survey we carry out, which a surveyor did for us. For instance, from the proposed filling station, it's approximately 125 away from the first one you will first get into, from K2 bus stop. Just 140. And we land DPR normal official distance is about 400 meters. So the one at Oshogun is 410 meters, which is, I think, is fairly okay. It's okay.
You can manage that.
But at worst, we have another gas filling station at the back of this proposed mega station. It's not ordinary. We have seen the tankers. The tankers are there. They are digging the ground. And earlier on, we made a protest.
Okay.
Because we have an association.
Yes.
We call it Irawosan Motayo Idohulayemo Resident Association. We wrote a letter, and that compound was sealed up sometimes a month after or so. But we never knew how all of a sudden this one sprung up again. So that is why we're on the streets.
Work sort of resumed.
Yes, they have resumed.
Yeah.
They have resumed. They have started digging. Work was on until about a week ago. Their caterpillar was on the site. So that's why we went to demonstrate on Saturday.
You know, there's this whole...
For the government to please come to our rescue, because government is to protect lives and property, and which is the immediate function of any government in power. And Lagos State has been trying. I will not say no.
The other matter is that of who was where first. Some people also talk about, in some cases, encroachment. Never mind criminal. It's even dangerous to the eventual residents of the area. If
no, Yori, please.
Yes.
I don't know whether you have been. That street is even narrow. If you have been to Demorin before,
yes,
at our own end, it's too narrow. How even the feeling the tanker would drive in. We have had the incidents of so many tankers falling down the road. One happened some years ago along even the big as Ibadan Express Road.
Yeah.
When the whole thing littered the fuel, killed.
But at least that's not a residential area.
No, I'm
just telling you that it was relatively easier for rescue equipment professionals to move in because, as you said, it was an expressway. Exactly. So you close off an expressway here, you close it off there, as indeed they did do, I think, in the recent fire that happened about a month ago. But these communities, it could be worrisome. But I guess the point that both of you are making is that they get approval, because nobody can put up a structure without approval.
Exactly.
They get approval from the authorities. And maybe before something bad happens is when people might just look at that whole thing again. But I don't know. sometimes people move into areas that initially were not that big residential community. Sometimes it's the other way around. The community has established itself, and then somebody has 1 hectare of land somewhere or buys up enough to, I beg your pardon, I meant acre, and then buys enough to actually have half an acre or 1 acre, whatever the prescription is. I don't even think there's very much of a prescription in that regard, because I can see some tiny petrol stations that are just done at about maybe a plot, you know, that kind of a thing. So it's like what you're doing is you're calling attention to, I don't know if to call, if I can call them lapses in the absence of government officials being here to really, as it were, educate us on what the real parameters are.
Yes.
But you are noticing that from, well, not in your case, but from the rest of us, from the amateur, non-professional viewpoint, this doesn't look safe. And then people are saying that any way you look at it, God forbid, there are accidents waiting to happen.
Exactly.
Good morning, Mr. George.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Thank you very much for calling in.
Greetings to your guest, Uncle Yori.
Yes.
Uncle Yori, what has happened is so unfortunate. What I would like to tell the Lagos State government is that they have to be up and doing in their regulations. In leadership or governance, you have to step on toes if you want the idea to be achieved. It's not about making sure somebody is always laughing. Some people have to laugh, some people have to cry for good governance to take place. Uncle Yori, I've been to a mechanic garage, and I saw structures built on top of a gas pipeline. Some of those structures they built around it are deliberately done so that at night they dig the pipe and start stealing fuel from there. Nobody wants to say it, but that is what is happening. You go to some petrol stations, a filling station is just next door. From the window of the next building, you can use your hand to touch the fence of a filling station. That is very, very risky.
Mm-hmm.
If a filling station has to be in a residential area, then it must acquire a very wide space of land, so that even if there is fire explosion in the petrol station, the gap between the station and buildings will not allow it to immediately go to the neighborhood and burn people alive.
That's right.
We have to do that. Otherwise, people will continue to die like this, and then we start saying, oh, you know, the government just has to close its eyes. The physical planning ministry has to get a no-nonsense person to be able to enforce the regulation of structures. That's my view.
Thank you very much for calling in, Mr. George. No matter whose ox is gored, and oftentimes, look, it's painful to say, but it must be said, there are political considerations. It depends on who you know or how well connected you are to achieve what Mr. George is saying. Even if mistakes have been made in the past, I guess the problem right now is that how do we go about, he was saying that, look, the right thing has to be done. Now, it costs a pretty penny to establish a petrol station. So how does government now say, and I'm just asking this question, you know, in a conversational sort of a way, as I'm imagining might be their thinking, how does the government now say, I'm sorry, sir, you're going to have to close down that petrol station. It just doesn't fit into this environment. And the man is going to bring out all sorts of documents of where the approvals were given, where the survey was done, and all of that. And then we have a problem. It is not very different from when government comes along and says, this house has got to go. And they say, it can't go, it can't go. So there are all sorts of emotionalisms involved. And that's what the first caller, Mr. George, said, that, look, we're either ready to do the necessary or we are not. If a petrol station doesn't fit into global best practices in terms of where it is sited, I guess the question is, can government do anything about it anymore?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, they can.
Anymore?
They have the ultimate power. Yes.
But as you know, you are sitting down there. No political responsibility at all. You are just a citizen, an expert in safety.
Yes.
And so these people, the experts in safety, know what to do. the will to now get ahead and do it, I guess that's what we're talking about now. Yeah. Reverend Dominic, good morning, sir. Reverend?
Good morning, Yori.
Hi, Reverend.
Good morning to your guest.
Indeed, thank you.
Yori, what happened yesterday is a sad story. If it is Black Sunday, it could be better. This is sorry Sunday. Now, what I think is, I want to answer George and the sister in the studio.
Sure.
I think we have gone too far in the wrong path to go to find it the right path. I give you an example. I live at almost close last week here. The major two gas plants, three major two gas plants, are sharing fence with a petrol station. God forbid, accident in one of them. What happens? And this is a very major marketer in oil business. Is it possible for government to close it? To my answer here, the way we live in Nigeria is no. But we can start tomorrow, today, to put regulation that this cannot happen. If you go to this last thing, that's a few filling stations, petrol stations, and gas stations, and they were started there in big properties. But how they share fence beats my own imagination.
Yeah.
And you can see it's open. It's a metro in my own area here. It's on Lekki Road. Where is government and where is our own sense of responsibility? To me, we have gone too far in the wrong path. I don't know if we can go in the right path. It's in every area of life. We pastors can cite churches in estate. We can cite churches market. We cite churches everywhere. Nobody is regulating. And when we feel using this massive thing and people coming, for government to into it become a challenge. The party comes into it. Please, I want to commend Lagos State government, but I want to say this. Let's save another 2 billion by changing things, by telling some people to live here and go to the other side. It will save more 2 billion by doing that. We can give them some property that will not cost 2 billion. We can locate them that will not cost 2 billion. But let's start saying, thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Dominic, for calling in. Here we are.
Yeah.
As I said, there's no problem whatsoever in terms of knowing what to do, sitting in a war room, so to speak, and saying, look, give us the survey map of Lagos, or whatever the environment is. And, where are all the petrol stations? Nah, this is not going to work. This infringes, this infringes, this infringes. Quite frankly, I don't think they need more than an 8-hour day work to determine where everything is badly positioned. But, well, Dominic came up with the idea that it might be painful. George before him. It might be painful. But don't we have to bite the bullet now, whatever the financial cost, but then last not the least, political cost as well. There's so many things that aren't done simply because it's not convenient to do. Everybody knows the safety regulations, or when I say everybody knows, yeah, everybody, it's available. It's publicly available if you want to search it out. But maybe we don't have that attitude to searching it out before. I just know that this is where I have my asset. And I've done a feasibility study, and this is where I think I could, site my gas plant or my petrol station. So the next step is to get approval. And we know that approving authorities oftentimes will look the other way. And that has been happening from time immemorial, as we say locally.
Yes.
Now, this incident that is scaring us that happened is what has brought about this conversation.
Yeah.
In fact, somebody said, one of the mechanics said in reading a newspaper report that he's even just thankful, in spite of the fact that over 200 cars that were parked there are destroyed, buildings were destroyed, ovens, I think when they talked about ovens, they're talking about painters, baking ovens,
Yes.
Some of them 10 million naira each were destroyed. He said he's thankful that it didn't happen on a Monday, that it happened on a Sunday when all of those areas were less populated. He said he was thankful for that. So I guess this is food for thought. Nobody wants to be a negative thinker, but it could be an accident waiting to happen. Good morning, Mr. Yakub.
Very good morning, sir.
Thank you very much for calling in.
And good morning to your guys in the studio.
Sure.
Let me say this. My president that just called earlier, Mr. George, president of this morning.
Of this morning Viewers Association.
Exactly. You see, I would like him to call the necessary people in the government. Or, Mr. Yori, I would like you to do this for us. If possible, you should call Mr. George back to give you information about the place, the mechanic place that he just mentioned, that they build a shanty on that pipeline in order for them to sample their fuel. Because never can tell. Some of us may take our car to that place without knowing that something like that is going on. God forbid, if disaster happens, nobody knows who is going to cut off in that kind of station, because it's a very bad idea to do that. So having said that, if you see in our environment, you see some places, a residential place that you know that this place is a typical residential people, and then we find out that people are building filling stations there. But the question we need to ask ourselves is this: who authorized them? Who? Government. Who is government? We people. Who gives them appointment to be a government, to work for the government? People. And then the corruption is still deep down in our blood. Because the situation whereby the government will set out that this is the criteria for you to get a filling station. And then when you get there, because you know people, and then the person that you know still know another person, a situation that because you know somebody in the government, and then a place that does not make for filling station, because you know people, and then you can bribe yourself way out of that. They will give you, they will approve that place for you. And then you go there, and then at the end of the day, when disaster happens, do you know that the people in the government, their family may not necessarily live in that place? Because in most cases, when they go to the government, they always go to Banana Island. And then who suffer most? We that living in a rural area that was not made for filling station, we suffer for it. And then at the end of the day, 2 billion, 3 billion, 5 billion naira, they will not say that they give it out for people that lost their life. And then
Mr. Yakub, I've got to interrupt you now. Forgive me. I've got to interrupt. Thank you very much, because I've got to quickly go off on a break. Stay with us, please. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back, and thank you very much for staying with us. If we've been together from the beginning, or, welcome. If you're just arriving now, you still have, this is like the halftime, still half of the match to go. Against the backdrop of the explosion at Abule-Ado, Lagos, and was an explosion that they're still trying to figure out. It wasn't as a result of pipeline, anybody interfering with the pipeline, so says NNPC preliminarily, as they continue with their investigation. And as for the Lagos State Emergency Management people, they say that they are, they are still mum. They really want a full-scale investigation to be able to say what exactly has happened. And now we're season, and the statistics are terrible. What, 17, no less than 17 confirmed dead, 25 at least that are trapped, and houses collapsing. A school, actually, just about all the girls in that school, one of the principals, actually, I believe a reverend sister, unfortunately, she's no more with us. So as they're trying to find out what is going on, we're having this conversation about potential, God forbid, hazards, dangers, just waiting to happen if an ill wind were to blow, which God, touch wood, would never blow. We hope it will never blow. While they seek to correct what even non-professionals are able to observe. This petrol station shouldn't be, there you go, you can just see, look at the innocency of this, somebody just sleeping, waking, and then, in fact, look, the way the concussion from the explosion is what was actually taking the roofs of buildings and that were imploding car glass. It was the concussion that led to that young man saying that blood was coming out of his ears. So that begins to give you an indication of the power of this explosion. What exactly happened? They really do need to tell us. If it was indeed a truck that, you know, hit some gas cylinders, then was there a chain reaction or something? Yeah, anytime a gas cylinder is going to be very hazardous, but one gas cylinder, that can't be it, because we are hearing, if it is factual, if it is correct and accurate, that the effects of this were felt about a mile away, not a kilometer, a mile away. Even at the, what's that, that market that's close to, that's close to the Festac. Is that the one?
There's Agboju market around the Festac.
Okay, so all of, within a wide radius of that place, where is that place that they usually have these exhibitions?
Trade fair.
Trade Fair International. Trade Fair International. They say, look, just look at that. Look at that. Nothing hit anything, but the concussion. It just begins to give you an indication of the magnitude of the. Look at all the shingles or whatever it was, whatever it was. It's the concussion took all of those away. So that's why people know that this was one mighty explosion. Now, as to Mr. Yakub saying that maybe Mr. George needs to, you know, tell us where, or tell authorities where the people are. I hear him, but I would say that there is very little that goes on in Lagos that the authorities do not know about. Very, very little. Very, very little. Especially when it comes to structures. Because the whole place is divided up into all sorts of local governments, and there are officials that are just patrolling. Just put up one wall that is not with due process and that has not been settled and properly documented, and you'll hear about it.
Exactly.
You will hear about it very, very quickly. So, whereas I understand Mr. Yakub where he's coming from, and I appreciate it, and I'm also saying that it goes back to what we were saying before. We know what to do, even if we aren't professionals, but how easy is it going to be able to do it? Because that would be like a new order. It will be like bringing in a new order. So whether people talk about encroachment on the one hand, that is to say people going to areas that they should not be going and somehow magically getting approval.
Magically.
I mean, it can only be. It can only be. So these are the issues. And government is listening. If not directly, they, you know, governments and these people, they have their own listening rooms or monitoring rooms where people are recording what's going on that they can review at their leisure later on, and can play to all the big men to hear what was said. So government is in full knowledge of not just the explosion, but also what we're talking about. And I think what we're talking about is we're really asking the question, what can be done with all those dangerous facilities which today are legal because of the papers that they have, but are potential dangers? How does government now illegitimize them? I guess that's the big challenge. How do you now say, you know what, it's not legal anymore? You can't have that anymore.
Yeah.
I guess that's the problem. That's the problem.
Well, Yuri, there's one area I'm thinking where our government should learn some lessons.
Okay.
Because no, we are in democratic dispensation.
Yes.
And everyone has his own rights under the law.
Yes.
So if the government is keeping quiet, a group of people, they can start litigation, taking them to court.
Okay. Okay. Because you protested.
For instance,
protested.
Look at
your association protested.
Look at the good practice of environmental sanitation. Yes. Which I cherish very much in those days. But is government, because people don't want to do the normal duties, environmental sanitation should be everyone's business. Clean your environment. Look at what we are hearing towards this coronavirus. People are not telling us, clean your environment. Are we to be told to clean up our environment? So somebody just went to court. I've forgotten the name of the lawyer. I think it was an Igbo man. in those days that
It was just a lawyer.
criticized.
It was a lawyer. It doesn't matter whether he
comes
was an or man. A lawyer.
When he criticized environmental,
Yes.
and he won
He was just
eventually.
using the law.
He won.
Yeah, I was just making the point that
So
his extraction has no relevance to the point you are making.
No, somehow.
Huh?
Because at the end of the day, government should not be taken to court by the citizens, by the citizenry. You know, after here and there,
Okay.
you know, they'll be losing money. They'll get their own lawyer.
Okay.
Is that the way to protect the citizenry?
Okay.
When they are losing, what should ordinarily be under a very good campaign? The man won. We never knew he will win that something. Do you remember?
But okay, I don't want to put too much on it. But if it had been a Yoruba lawyer, he would have won too.
Regardless.
So I'm trying to say that there was an irrelevancy in the statement about the extraction of the lawyer, sir.
Okay.
With due respect.
Okay.
You know, a lawyer went to court.
A lawyer went to court.
And you know, and
He
as
took
it were,
over
stop
and he
this.
won. He stopped up to tomorrow.
Okay.
So I don't know what government, because when the incumbent governor of Lagos State took over, I think we learned that he's trying to reintroduce the environmental sanitation. So there is something they can still do. Are you getting me? In as much as somebody won. So anything about safety, when people are taking government to court,
Yes.
you know, to have their rights, say this thing is very dangerous, is in the built-up area.
Okay, one moment, please. I think our man, one of our reporters, Theophilus Elema, can give us an update on the Abule-Ado situation. Oh, I understand he's on phone. Good morning, Theophilus.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for coming through. Are you at Abule-Ado?
Yes, currently I'm at Abule-Ado.
Okay. So we're now in the aftermath of the whole crisis, because they tell us that reports say the fire was finally put out yesterday in the afternoon around 3:30. Is that correct? And what's the aftermath now?
Well, the fire, not all of it, right, yet, rather. When we got here this morning, there was still some fire which the fire service was trying to trying drastically to put out. Then at this point, the fire has been put out completely, but the whole area has been cordoned at this point.
Okay.
Of course,
but the pictures that we are seeing now are not live pictures. These are pictures from earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so but the Lagos State governor was here with his deputy, and he announced a 2 billion naira emergency relief fund. Now, this is to aid the rebuilding efforts in this area. And of course, Lagos State government is going to put in 250 million naira to serve that fund, while the private sector will contribute. Of course, the governor said that he has contacted some banks or some institutions to join in this so that this can happen. And of course, the governor has stated that a fact-finding team will be headed by the deputy governor to ascertain the cause of this explosion. Of course, no one knows the real cause of this. We spoke with NEMA as well as the National Emergency Management Agency. Then they are trying to also to get the root cause of the situation here, what actually caused the explosion that has destroyed a lot of buildings all the way to TBS and to Aton Agse. Looking at the pictures here, I mean, just social media doesn't really do justice to the situation here.
The devastation.
The devastation here. Over 200 buildings were destroyed. Over 200 buildings were destroyed, and it goes really far, all the way to TBS, all the way to Aton Agse, which were told this morning. The devastation is quite real. Houses burnt down, houses demolished as a result of the impact. We spoke to some people who say they felt the impact as far as Ikorodu Road access. So that's how far the impact has gone. And so the government and, of course, the emergency agencies are doing all they can to get to the cause of the situation and, of course, stem the tide.
So Theophilus, it goes without saying now, even from the pictures, even if they weren't live pictures, but still they're relevant, that hundreds have been rendered homeless now.
That's true. Hundreds have been rendered homeless. We see people trying to salvage what's left of their properties. A lot of people are relocating because they're scared of what's going to happen here. Some are even alleging that it's a bomb blast, but the governor and of course other agencies have debunked that, saying it's not a bomb blast and it's not an insurgency. And so the cause will be announced. Of course, the Lagos State government has given their own committee set up by the governor of Lagos State, headed by the deputy governor, 2 weeks to submit its report. And so we await the outcome of that investigation.
Okay. Do you know of any arrangements to house these people that have suddenly been rendered homeless? You've just said that people are relocating. I mean, those that have a place to relocate to, of course. But is the situation such that it would need any kind of assistance in terms of displacement camps, or do you know anything about that?
Yes, the situation is such that a lot of those who lost their properties will have to go to the relief camps, which the government says is going to be ready quite short. It's ready actually to accommodate a lot of them, but we don't know how much it can accommodate because the devastation here is quite huge. If there's another word for huge, I will have to use that, but it's quite, the devastation here is quite huge. It goes beyond what we see here. So you just have to be here to see what has happened.
The pictures don't do it justice.
It doesn't do justice to that. So you just have to be here to understand the situation. It goes very far. And so we don't know if the relief camps will be able to accommodate the most people. But from what we see, some people are trying to salvage their properties and move around. Of course, the school, the Bethlehem Girls Academy, has been destroyed totally. We saw a place that is seen as the separately, the chapel, their hostel, all of that destroyed completely. Of course, we heard that the principal has died as well.
That's right.
Because he was trying to help rescue
some of our people
out of the building, and so she got affected by the situation. But by and large, security agencies are here, the emergency responders are here, the crane is here as well to bring the buildings down that have already been affected, that have been destroyed already, and bring all of them to ground zero to ensure that there are no, to ensure that there are no dead bodies in between the rubble.
It's interesting that last point you made, that buildings are being taken down. That will be buildings that have become too unstable to possibly be renovated. Are there very many of those, and are there any within at least your site, as you stay where you are reporting from, that are being left alone, that these ones can be renovated later on? The structure hasn't been that compromised? Or is it, look, everything for a certain radius has to be taken down?
Yes, everything from the certain radius has to be taken down, but from what we can see, a few of them can be renovated. The governor also said that they will look into this situation to see, to assess which buildings will have to be rebuilt, renovated, and which ones will have to come down so that the new structures can come up forth. But some of these buildings here can be renovated, while the whole lot will be demolished. Of course, the place is at the Bethlehem Academy, demolishing the buildings there, and
the Bethlehem Academy is an all-girls school.
It's an all-girls school, yes.
And what are the figures that you have, because you are there, in terms of, were there any loss of lives there?
Yes, we heard that it still remain at 17. Well, like I said earlier, the crane is on hand to ensure that, from what we hear, there are still some dead bodies underneath the rubble, who will be trying to establish the situation and see how they can, by the end of today or before the end of today, we'll get another figure or the same figure will still stand. But at this point, it still remains at 17, and about 50 have been taken to hospital.
Well, thank you very much, Theophilus, for bringing us up to scratch. He made the point there that government authorities have said that, look, this is not a terrorist incident. This is not as a result of vandalizing of pipelines. But what it is exactly remains to be known. And that, as our reporter said there, everybody's being cautious. Yeah, there's no shortage of ideas as to what might have happened, but it's all in the realm of speculation until we get a professional assessment and report. That's why we're keeping, we're restraining ourselves in the midst of this devastation and sorrow and anguish, and suddenly people becoming homeless.
Can I just add something? He said something.
Okay, continuing with our program now, Alhaji Subaya from Ali Moshoa. You're probably our last caller. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Yori.
Thank you for calling in.
Yes. Look, let's.
Are you still with us?
Yes, I'm with you. I'm with you, Yori.
Please continue.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, let's call it spade a spade. The man by your side have said he's on. In line with, there's a law on ground. There's a law on ground, but the implementation is the problem. And the woman that even said it, look at the fantastic knowledge the woman brought from UK and given, for the purpose of our city. You see, look, NMPC themselves, they have a problem. The Lagos state government too has a problem, especially the town planning, sector. They need to sit down, and people are responsible for this mess. People are responsible for this mess. So, and it's like if justice is not done, people is not, hold into the account of this mess. The issue of bribery and everything is one of our issues. So, Mr. Yori, look, I am saying emphatically, look at what happened in the past. In Ijegun, about 3 months ago, the issue of gas, Abule-Ado, the same thing about a month or 2 months ago, the same thing. You see, like I said, you see, all these officials, they are responsible for no filling station can be built without the compliance, without the approval of Lagos State Town Planning.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Alhaji Subaya, for calling in. Again, nothing more needs to be said on top of that. As I said, government itself is listening.
Yes.
They're listening. They know, they're hearing all of this. And there's very little that we've said that they don't know and are not aware of.
Yeah.
So it comes back to justice must be done. And even if justice has a few steps before you arrive there, people are saying, okay, in the meantime, compassion, compassion. Don't let this happen.
Yes.
Don't let this happen. There's every potential that it might happen. We're all prayerful people. Every Sunday, all the roads are jammed with church-going people. Every Friday, all the roads are jammed with mosque-going people. We're all very, very religious people. And we know, even traditionally itself, people will just use their hand and say, it will not happen.
Well, that's the greatest problem in this country.
But,
implementation.
Yes.
there you go. Everybody has commented on the matter. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and before that, the president, who have all sent their condolences to all of the people, that have been affected. And I want to thank you very much, Mrs. Windele and Elder Ido, for coming along and highlighting this area. The authorities are listening. They themselves were at the place, so they know. And we just hope that things will get better.
We pray so. We really do hope so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
To come and seal up that the proposed filling station. Prevention is better than cure.
That is direct action.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So that's our program today. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Iyori Folani. Bye-bye for now.